That'll do it for Believe It or Not. Let's transition now to our waiver wire stuff, and we're going to spend a lot of time on Tuesday looking at the waiver options for you. We want to give you a sneak peek of what the waiver wire could look like for Week 13. No surprise, Mike White is on the quarterback list because he just had a monster performance against the Bears and probably going to be throwing. Look, Mac Jones just had a good game against the Vikings, so maybe Mike White could have a similar type of performance as well. Adam, Jared Goff, he gets the Jaguars, and he's coming off a strong game. He's been very good at home. Might have Jameson Williams back. Any interest in Jared Goff as a starter this week?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a Jared Goff believer. I was a few weeks ago. I thought he'd have a good game against the Giants, and he didn't because Jamal Williams steals every single touchdown. But if some of those rushing touchdowns become passing touchdowns, Goff's actually playing pretty well in terms of yards per attempt. I think he was top 10 going into the week, and then he played pretty well against Buffalo. So, yes, there is some interest as maybe like QB 15, somewhere in that range this week.
I got to go confirm this, but I know going into Thursday, he was tied with Patrick Mahomes for the most passing touchdowns, or most touchdowns at home. He had 2, Mahomes had 1, so he might now be the leader in terms of most touchdowns at home. So good situation there for him. Tannehill, I think, will bounce back because they'll be throwing again against Philadelphia. Could be a decent situation there for him. And obviously Mike White is probably the prize here in terms of what the upside could be if he continues to look like that. Jordan Love, more of a emergency situation in case Aaron Rodgers can't go. The running backs, Heath, when we look at this list, Kieran Williams now, according to at least one writer that covers the Rams, is the #1 running back there, mostly because he played the most snaps ahead of Cam Akers. But something you can look at there with the receiving corps being what it is. Mike Boone could be the guy in tandem with Latavius Murray, but for a 32-year-old running back, you might want to have the more explosive player there. We talked about Hasty, we talked about Johnson, we talked about White and those guys and the upside there for him, and Jordan Mason as well. But just in terms of the Broncos backfield situation, your interest level in Mike Boone is what?
It is pretty low. I think Mike Boone could come in and play maybe 25-30% of the snaps, catch a few passes, but this is going to be a very bad offense. It's low touchdown odds, and he's never been a guy who gets to carry the ball a lot. It's not a great week on the waiver wire.
Yep. Well, I mean, as we look, I just wanted to talk about somebody different. The prize would be the Jets backs if Michael Carter does miss time, and as we've told you, Zonovan Knight is the better of the two guys. The wide receivers that we're looking at here, Adam, is a long list, and so we'll talk a lot more about this on Tuesday. But you mentioned Zay Jones as a winner. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about him because he's been very good when the Jaguars have been throwing the ball, and they'll probably be throwing the ball in what could be a shootout against Detroit.
Yeah, he's got, I believe, 6 games this year with 8 or more targets, and he scored double-digit PPR fantasy points in 5 of those 6 games. Detroit can score the ball, so I do like Zay Jones, and I just think Zay Jones has become basically a #3 wide receiver. His next 2 opponents are Detroit and Tennessee. They are top 4 in wide receiver targets seen per game. In other words, wide receivers get a lot of targets against these teams, so that's an encouraging sign for Zay Jones going forward. He wouldn't be my first choice, but he is definitely a nice low-end option.
You also mentioned Zacchaeus. Just your talk about why he was a winner for you and then maybe what the upside is for him moving forward.
Right, Olamide Zacchaeus. Imagine if Drake London had 91 yards and 8 targets in the first game without Kyle Pitts. We'd be pretty excited about that. That's what Zacchaeus had. London had very little in the game. I'm really not expecting much here. I'm probably not going to put in any claims for Olamide Zacchaeus, but if you're in a 14-team league, if you're super desperate, he could become the #1 target. It's just something to keep an eye on. I just think the first game without Pitts, he has this big game. Like I said, if that were London, we'd be excited. Zacchaeus doesn't have a track record, I get it, but it is something to monitor and something for deep leagues.
Jameson Williams is hoping to make his debut in Week 13 against the Jaguars. What's your interest level there?
I would like to add him and stash him and see what he looks like. I do think that he has the type of talent and the type of upside that if things click right away, he could be a league winner in the fantasy playoffs.
That should be fun to see what happens there, so we'll keep an eye on that situation. The tight ends that you could be looking at here, similar to the running backs, not exactly the greatest list. Heath, I want to ask you, though, about Hayden Hurst because he's had some good production without Jamar Chase, but Chase expected to return. What will that mean for Hurst's production rest of the season?
I think he's a touchdown or bust tight end, but in a game that's going to have an over-under north of 50 playing against the Chiefs, who have had struggles in the passing game with just about every position, Hayden Hurst, if you're going to choose a touchdown or bust guy this week, he's not a bad one to choose.
And I will say this just about Juwan Johnson. He had a couple of end zone targets, only had 2 targets in the game. One was off of a tip pass, but had a ball that hit him in the hands. If he scores a touchdown there, we're talking about 5 touchdowns in 6 games, and now he gets a Bucs defense that may have some issues in the secondary, so just keep an eye on that